Okay, so hello everyone once again, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to today's session where we will be exploring a new topic today. It will be link between gender and climate change, and we are joined by Chetna Anjali. She's a student at IIT Delhi and the founder of Gender in Climate. It's basically a podcast and a platform dedicated to talking about gender and climate justice. Chetna also brings a unique voice to this space, blending with research, activism, and storytelling. She is a TCI UNESCO Climate Leader Fellow and is currently preparing to represent young voices at COP30 also. So we are excited to hear her insights on this amazing topic. And over to you, Chetna. Chetna, I guess you're on mute.
Okay, yes. Hello, hi. I'm Chetna. मैं usually दूसरे side होती हूँ, guys. I'm on your side, and usually this is very new for me. So you have to be very kind and generous. And hopefully, we all learn something along the journey. So I've made a slide. I'll talk a little bit about myself though, क्योंकि मेरे को क्या लगता है कि usually when there are speakers, I always want to know a little bit about them before they start giving that talk. So I'll talk a little bit about me. I'm from Ranchi, Jharkhand. My name is Chetna. I was always very drawn to humanities, social sciences. So ended up doing my bachelor's from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, doing in a course in a very interdisciplinary course called social science, bachelor's in social science. After that, I found myself in Delhi doing 1 years of gender studies at Ambedkar University. So you will realize I bring a lot of gender and feminist lens into my professional work, in my academic work as well. And yeah, I'll be starting my master's in 5 days at IIT Delhi. And a little bit about my climate journey and how I met Ishan was both of us, we ended up doing a fellowship called the Climate Leader Fellowship from Climact and UNESCO. And before that, I had very scattered experiences on climate. I didn't even know where I was really interested in it, but that fellowship was really a push to sort of enlighten my passion around gender and climate. uh, and I ended up launching a podcast on this. I then ended up seeking a lot of opportunities in climate and gender. So I ended up interning with a think tank, of which I'll be talking about my work with the think tank called Center for Social Research. And I'm also doing a fellowship with this Colombian think tank called Life of Pachamama around representing gender and climate delegation at COP30. Right? So that is a little bit about me. I've made a PPT. So I'll share that and we'll start with it. Okay. So let me quickly share my screen. The name of my podcast is Gendering Climate, but you will not find it because we are still in post edit. You will realize that post production is a very big woe, and we started 2 months ago, but hopefully we'll be launching some episodes soon on Spotify, and I'll be sure to share it with Ishan, right? So when Ishan first asked me, ki, what do you want to speak about? Of course, he knew gender and climate, but I was thinking of very fancy names. I was like, कैसे मतलब एकदम ऐसे बहुत ही fancy नाम मैं दूं. फिर मैंने चैट जीपीटी से पूछा कि मैं क्या नाम दूं कि ये बहुत ही लगे कि मैं कुछ बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें कर रही हूँ. पर आपको रियलाइज होगा कि जैसे इंटरनेट ने नॉलेज डेमोक्रेटाइज किया था, वैसे ही एआई, चैट जीपीटी, क्लॉड, ये सब ने इंटेलिजेंस भी डेमोक्रेटाइज कर दिया. राइट? So it's not something मैं बहुत ही, I won't say something very radical and out of the world in it, right? But the way that I can make this few minutes that I have of your time valuable is to imbue with a lot of my own personal experiences, my own learnings, and try to talk about my own journey along with talking about something that I'm really passionate about, which is gender and climate, right? So I've taken these two very simple words, climate, gender. बहुत लोगों को लगता है कि रिलेटेड कैसे है, ये क्या बोल रहे हो आप. ठीक है, दो अलग अलग कंसेप्चुअल कैटेगरीज है, एक जेंडर है, एक क्लाइमेट है. बट माई एंटायर वर्क इज अराउंड कि हाउ दीज बोथ इंटरसेक्ट एंड हाउ इज इम्पोर्टेंट टू टॉक अबाउट दैट इंटरसेक्शन, राइट? तो अभी मेरा slides, okay, yes. Often when we talk about climate change, हमारे दिमाग में जो पहली चीज आती है, we think that it's about carbon, it's about pollution, it's about carbon tax, right? But you will realize that a lot of these जो मेटा नैरेटिव्स होते हैं ना, क्लाइमेट एक बहुत बड़ा नैरेटिव है, ठीक है? आप अगर उसके कोर में जाओगे ना, इट्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स इट्स अबाउट पावर. When you try to contextualize it socially, locally, you will realize that a lot of it is about power, is about how economies work, how land work, how resources are allocated. And when you acquaint yourself कि ये theoretical concept है climate का, और फिर I am impassioned enough to then funnel all of this into my climate action journey and my climate activism, you will realize that it's not only about technology. आजकल अगर you follow climate discourses as closely as I do, you will realize कि अभी बहुत बड़े बड़े शब्द यूज होते हैं climate discourses में, CBAM, carbon taxing, climate finance, राइट? यू विल रियलाइज बहुत ही एक टेक्नोक्रेटिक लेंस है क्लाइमेट में, पर इवेंचुअली यू विल रियलाइज कि it's important to talk about these big concepts, but it's also important to not talk about these at the cost of some very real on ground uh, contextually socially driven aspects of climate change as well, right? It's about, so when climate change should also call for us to to think about who holds knowledge, whose labor sustains society, whose voices are shaping the future, right? Talking about it in a more contextual local social sense as well. Hmm. ओके, तो जब आप कभी भी प्रेजेंटेशन देते हो कुछ लोगों को, या आप कोई एकेडमिक पेपर लिखते हो, तो आपको रियलाइज होगा कि आप एक प्रेमिस बनाते हो कि आप आपका आर्ग्यूमेंट क्या है. तो मेरा इस प्रेजेंटेशन की शुरुआत से और एंड तक माय गोल इज दिस: आई वांट टू कन्विंस यू गाइस दैट क्लाइमेट चेंज इज नॉट जेंडर न्यूट्रल, right? There are very gendered aspects to what we call climate change, right? क्योंकि आप सोचो, when a well runs dry, who do you think is walking the furthest to get that water, right? When resources become scarce to do climate change within a household, who do you think is cutting on food so that the family eats well, right? And how are these more contextual and social impacts of climate change being felt by women, right? So why should you care? Why gender and climate? Firstly, though, the numbers speak for themselves, right? So you will realize that 80% of people that are displaced by climate disasters are women and children, right? 14% women are 14 times more likely to die in climate disasters than men. Women and girls spend 20 million hours every day collecting water, right? So these are quantifiable things that we know women are feeling, how women are feeling differently about climate change, right? But what are some of the other reasons you should care? So first thing is, the issue of climate and gender and climate is not a very potent or a very strong policy concern yet, and that's why we need to talk about it more, right? पर ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है, क्यों हम इसके बारे में ज्यादा बात नहीं करते, हम इसके बारे में ज्यादा सुनते नहीं है? क्या बस ये इंस्टीट्यूशनल ब्लाइंडनेस है? क्या हमारी सरकार इनडिफरेंट है? क्यों ऐसा होता है? Let's understand the more logical reason behind it. Firstly, a major reason for for it is there's a huge data gap. तो जब हम डेटा कलेक्ट भी करते हैं क्लाइमेट इम्पैक्ट के बारे में, वो जेंडर सेग्रीगेटेड डेटा नहीं होता है, राइट? तो हमें पता ही नहीं कि वुमेन कैसे शायद डिफरेंटली इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं, मेन कैसे डिफरेंटली इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं. दूसरी बात, बहुत बड़ी बात क्या है कि जब अगर आप अपना क्लाइमेट जर्नी स्टार्ट करोगे, तो शुरू शुरू में ना हम सबको आईपीसीसी रिपोर्ट्स पढ़ने होते हैं, ऑक्सफैम रिपोर्ट्स पढ़ना होता है. एंड व्हेन यू गो थ्रू द डेटा ऑफ दीज रिपोर्ट्स, you will realize that a lot of data which is collected is about households and not individuals. So the household becomes the unit for data collection in a lot of climate change. So that is again, तो जब आपके पास data नहीं है, you can't quantitatively and very tangibly tell no, this is happening. It still remains a very theoretical and sort of context based argument, right? And thirdly, there's also media blind spot. हम उतने इसके बारे में उतना बात नहीं करते हैं. And I will touch on the media blind spot thing a little bit more in a later slide as well, right? Now, why you should care? Why is this happening? Why should I care about climate and gender? Firstly, because I think we're all here, we're all somewhere related to the development sector, to the social sector, or uh, we are all sort of driven somewhere by justice, right? Somewhere by some social issue, some issue that concerns us, that drives our activism, right? And when you realize that when I talk about climate justice, क्योंकि gender और climate का जो issue आता है, that comes within the broader spectrum of climate justice को हम क्या बोलते हैं. So you will realize climate justice is inseparable from social justice, right? When you ignore gender in your own climate action, you're not only missing half of the story, we are also missing solutions. Because it's important कि हम वापस वो same patriarchal logic में ना चले जाए, where we start framing these women as victims. These women are not just victims, they are also leaders, they are innovators, and they are holders of crucial knowledge, right? Because you will realize women have so much wisdom, generational knowledge about how to deal with climate, how to deal with their local conditions, how they are how their wisdom can help us solve this problem of what they're holding, right? So it's not only about understanding, no, they are being victimized, they are being differently impacted, but it's also about understanding how we can bring their leadership and their wisdom within the larger climate discourse, right? तो समझने के लिए कि शायद कैसे थोड़े जेंडर इम्पैक्ट है क्लाइमेट के, मेरे को लगा दिस टेबल विल बी हेल्पफुल. आई थिंक अ टैबुलर फॉर्म इज ऑलवेज यूजुअली अ वेरी ससिंक्ट एंड अ क्लियर फॉर्म टू टेल पीपल व्हाट्स अप, राइट? सो हियर आर सम ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज इम्पैक्ट्स. उसके इम्पैक्ट तो होते हैं, पर समझने के लिए कि उनका जेंडर इम्पैक्ट भी क्या है, ठीक है? तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जब एक्सट्रीम वेदर कंडीशंस आ जाते हैं, मान लो ड्रॉट आ गया, फ्लड आ गया, तो उसके जेंडर इम्पैक्ट्स क्या होते हैं, वुमेन को कैसे शायद डिफरेंटली इफेक्ट करता है rather than it affecting men. So one of the ways it affects women is that women start to experience longer working hours, right? Their care burden increases. फूड सिक्योरिटी की मैं जो पहले बात की थी, उनकी फूड सिक्योरिटी कम हो जाती है. There is also a lot of study which says there is some correlation, though not direct causation, there is some correlation between climate change and increased violence for women, right? क्योंकि जो existing vulnerabilities होती हैं वो कंपाउंड हो जाती है क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से, ठीक है? लैक ऑफ हाइजीन, लैक ऑफ देयर पुअर फैसिलिटीज. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एयर पोल्यूशन कैसे डिफरेंटली इफेक्ट करे, हम तो बोलेंगे कि सब तो सेम सांस ले रहे, तो शायद कैसे औरतों को थोड़ा सा अलग से इफेक्ट करता है. तो एक ग्रेट एग्जाम्पल ये होगा कि when you go to a lot of houses, you will realize women cramped up in small kitchens and cooking with unclean fuels. आप बोलेंगे तो कि उज्ज्वला स्कीम आ गया है, एलपीजी है, पर अभी भी a lot of women still end up cooking with cow dung cakes, right? And when they're exposed to that unclean fuel for a really long time, what happens is that it affects their respiratory health, which affects their maternal health, their reproductive health. So this is one small way, and perhaps it is affecting women differently, right? How is heat affecting women differently? You will realize, and I will cover heat much more because heat is a very, very big conversation in general and climate, and I will cover this a little bit more later also. But you will realize that due to heat, again, increase care burdens बढ़ जाते हैं, आपकी reduced product, informal labor में जो औरतें दहाड़ी कर रही हैं, आप देखोगे कि एक्सेसिव हीट की वजह से उनके हेल्थ इम्पैक्ट ज्यादा होने लगे हैं, right? Which are not similarly affecting men, but women are experiencing heat stress differently than men. And understanding how that is happening and how it might be affecting their health differently, right? Water scarcity, again, again, I'll cover this more because water and heat are really two important dimensions within climate and gender. पर अगेन वाटर स्कार्सिटी, पानी कम होता है, औरतों को ज्यादा दूर जाना पड़ता है, आपकी फिजिकल ड्रजरी बढ़ रही है, ठीक है? आपका इंक्रीज टाइम बढ़ रहा है, ठीक है? increase time, opportunity costs हैं बहुत. Water and gender is again a very, very sort of complex layered problem, which वो अपने में एक पूरा सेशन हो सकता है बस अंडरस्टैंडिंग वाटर एंड women का रिलेशनशिप है. तीसरा, जब कॉमन्स और उनका डिप्लीशन होता है, so there's a lack of firewood, fodder, medicinal plants that can affect women's livelihood, it can affect their food security. right? And lastly, but also a very important thing is migration, right? Because a lot of you will see a lot of very direct impact of climate change is also forced migration. Women being, families being forced because climate change is happening, right? So how is migration impacting women differently? Understanding, there is also some great academic work on. I remember I had a guest on my podcast called Chetna Anjali. She shared a name with me, and she was talking about how climate change is leading to increased risks in trafficking for women, right? How it's leading to more precarious working conditions for women. So these are just some of the ways, some of the various क्लाइमेट चेंज के इम्पैक्ट्स, और उनका क्या परहैप्स पॉसिबल जेंडर इम्पैक्ट भी हो सकते हैं, जिसकी तरफ हमारा ध्यान नहीं शायद जाता है, पर बहुत ही लिव्ड रियलिटी है बहुत सारी औरतों की, एंड इट परहैप्स शुड बिकम अ मोर इम्पोर्टेंट डिस्कशन व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट क्लाइमेट. दीज आर सिमिलर थिंग्स, बट ये इतना सुंदर स्लाइड था कि मैंने इंक्लूड कर दिया गाइस. पर सेम ही चीजें मैं इसमें भी बोल रही हूँ. एयर पोल्यूशन कैसे इफेक्ट कर रहा है, वाटर स्कार्सिटी, हीट स्ट्रेस. और ये एक बहुत ही सो दिस इज अ फ्रेमवर्क बाय असर. असर इज अगेन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन दैट वर्क्स एक्सटेंसिवली ऑन जेंडर एंड क्लाइमेट, वन ऑफ द फ्यू ऑर्गेनाइजेशन दैट डज. और कंपाउंडिंग वनरेबिलिटी फ्रेमवर्क है ना, जब मैं बात कर रही थी कि वायलेंस बढ़ रहा है क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से, तो ये कोई डायरेक्ट रिलेशन नहीं है कि क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है तो औरतों पे वायलेंस बढ़ रहा है. पर क्लाइमेट चेंज से होता क्या है, जो एग्जिस्टिंग वनरेबिलिटीज हैं वो और भी कंपाउंड होने लगती है. तो आप समय लेके इसको और अच्छे से पढ़ सकते हो. इफ यू लाइक गो थ्रू द एरोज एंड ऑल, इट्स अ रियली गुड फ्रेमवर्क टू हैव. बट सम ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट आई वुड लाइक टू फ्लैग हियर, कि ऑलरेडी लेयर्स ऑफ मार्जिनलाइजेशन होते हैं. आपका जेंडर का मार्जिनलाइजेशन है, सोशल बैकग्राउंड का मार्जिनलाइजेशन है, स्पेशल लोकेशन का मार्जिनलाइजेशन है. वो कैसे बिकॉज ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज कंपाउंड हो जाता है, वो और भी एग्जैजर्बेट हो जाता है बिकॉज ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, एंड देन इट लीड्स टू फर्दर मार्जिनलाइजेशन. तो आप नीचे वाला जो अगर मेरा आरो, हाँ, नीचे वाला अगर ये ग्रीन देखोगे तो इट लीड्स टू फर्दर इनफॉर्मलाइजेशन. इट कैन लीड टू फर्दर unorganized nature of occupation, absence of social safety nets, right? So this is a good framework to understand how climate change can perhaps lead to a compounding vulnerability effect for already existing vulnerabilities for women, राइट? जो मैं मीडिया ब्लाइंड स्पॉट की बात कर रही थी, गाइस मैंने यहाँ पे एक टीवी लगा दी है क्योंकि मैं मीडिया के बारे में बात करने वाली हूँ थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे. पर एक बहुत बड़ा मीडिया ब्लाइंड स्पॉट भी है जब आप वुमेन और क्लाइमेट के बारे में बात करोगे. एक तो आप देखोगे कि आप क्लाइमेट कवरेज अगर इंडिया में देखोगे तो आप देखोगे, यू विल, if you read a lot of climate news and if you're engaging with these discourses, you will realize कि एक तो हमारा जो हम जैसे क्लाइमेट को समझते हैं, ज्यादा कन्वेंशनली लोगों की जो समझ है वो बहुत ही एक्सट्रीम वेदर कंडीशन तक सीमित है. जैसे अगर कुछ ड्रॉट हो रहा है, फ्लड हो रहा है, तो मीडिया कवरेज होगा. ठीक है, बहुत ही सीजनल कवरेज है. एयर पोल्यूशन अगर नवंबर में दिल्ली में बढ़ रहा है तो न्यूज कवरेज है, पर बाकी साल नहीं है, राइट? बिग इवेंट्स का कवरेज है, कॉप का कवरेज है, पेरिस एग्रीमेंट का कवरेज है. बट टू अंडरस्टैंड लिव्ड रियलिटी में कैसे वुमेन आर गेटिंग इम्पैक्टेड, परहैप्स उसका उतना कवरेज नहीं है, राइट? और एक तो ये क्लाइमेट का जनरल कवरेज है, ऊपर से इस कवरेज में जेंडर बिल्कुल ही एब्सेंट है. तो एक छोटा सा जैसे ये एक केस स्टडी है इसके लिए, कि एक न्यूज़पेपर डेटा 2024 से आप लोगे तो 804 मेंशंस हैं ड्रॉट और महाराष्ट्र के. मैंने कॉलेज अपना महाराष्ट्र में किया था, तुलजापुर नाम की जगह में. आई एम फ्रॉम दिस तुलजापुर, राइट? सो आई बिलोंग टू सौराष्ट्र एंड ड्रॉट इज अ ह्यूज प्रॉब्लम इन सौराष्ट्र, right? So you will see there were 804 mentions of drought in Maharashtra. But as soon as you start to look for keywords saying drought Maharashtra and women, only 7 mentions come up, right? So how is this discourse, how is this vulnerability even being covered in media? There's a blind spot to it. But it's not to say that it's completely absent. There are some digital platforms that do excellent stories around women and climate. But उसकी भी बहुत limitations है, क्योंकि systemic way में अभी भी ये उतना developed framework नहीं है, उतना developed lens नहीं है कि आप इसके बारे में बहुत extensively सुनो अपने अपने news में या discussions में. एक अभी भी थोड़ा सा niche subject है. और दूसरी सबसे बड़ी बात है कि एक बहुत बड़ा language barrier भी है, क्योंकि I am see I am a I मैं दिल्ली में बैठी हुई हूँ, मैं AC में बैठी हुई हूँ, right? I still come from privilege. A lot of these women who are being very adversely affected by climate change are women at the grassroots, are women at villages, at rural level, local level, right? और उनके stories दिल्ली में बैठा हुआ DU से पास आउट जर्नलिस्ट नहीं समझता है, उनकी ना ही ये भाषा बोलता है, उनकी ना ही ये इशू समझता है, राइट? तो जब तक कि जैसे मैं बिहार से हूँ, जब तक कि मैं अगर मैं जाके बिहार में जाऊँ और मैं वहाँ की औरतों से बात करूँ कि आपको अपने क्रॉप पैटर्न्स में क्या डिफरेंस दिख रहा है या आपको हीट कैसे डिफरेंटली इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है, राइट? तो वहां से स्टोरीज आएंगी क्योंकि इतने लोकल इश्यूज हैं, राइट? सो बिग पार्ट ऑफ ऑल्सो टॉकिंग अबाउट क्लाइमेट एंड जेंडर इज टू अपने जर्नलिज्म को और लिंग्विस्टिकली डाइवर्स करना है। जब आप लिंग्विस्टिकली और डाइवर्स करोगे, जब आप और लोकल स्टोरीज को आप सामने लाओगे, तब आप रियलाइज करोगे कि लोकल women what are they facing, right? So this is also a huge thing, is to make journalism more linguistically diverse, and then the stories will come forward even more, I feel. um Right. अब मैं अपने मैं I will just talk about three of my experiences. My climate journey hasn't been that long, but three of my experiences which I feel would perhaps can give you some learnings or insights into this, hopefully. And then we'll end this, right? And then perhaps we can open it to discussion as well. Okay. So I just want to tell you how gendered climate work can look like. So I was my last internship was with the organization called Center for Social Research. उनका एक department था gender, water and climate पे, and they were working on projects. The last project that they worked on was called Building Women's Leadership in Water Conservation, Alwar, Rajasthan. तो ये क्या करते थे, हमने बहुत ही थियोरेटिकल बातें कर ली, हाँ मीडिया कवरेज कम है अभी तक, डेटा कम है, कैसे इम्पैक्ट करे, पर अगर आप इस पे काम करना चाहते हो, इफ यू वांट टू वर्क इन दिस स्पेस ऑफ जेंडर एंड क्लाइमेट, हाउ यू कैन डू इट एंड व्हाट डज जेंडर क्लाइमेट वर्क लुक लाइक, एंड दिस इज अ ग्रेट एग्जांपल फॉर इट, राइट? सो सेंटर फॉर सोशल रिसर्च वो क्या करते थे, आई हैव लिव्ड इन जयपुर फॉर 7 years of my life, right? And water is a huge concern when you go to rural areas. It occupies women's lives, it's central to them because water is so scarce, right? So what Center for Social Research would do through the projects that they undertook, वो जाते थे गांव में and they would work on the regeneration and regeneration of these traditional water bodies called johars. अब आप जोहार को समझने के लिए बहुत ही मतलब सिंपल भाषा में अगर हम समझे तो एक बहुत बड़ा पॉन्ड समझ लो, ठीक है, जो कि एकदम विलेज के बीच में है और एक सेंट्रली यूज्ड कम्युनिटी कमोडिटी है जिसको सब यूज करते हैं, राइट? और ये बहुत सारे विलेजेस में डिफंक्ट हो गया है, बट व्हाट सेंटर फॉर सोशल रिसर्च रियलाइज इज दैट दिस इज सच अ गुड वे टू काउंटर द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ वाटर स्कार्सिटी इन रूरल राजस्थान, दैट their work revolves around going to these villages, working with rural women एंड देन रीजनरेटिंग दिस। और ये कैसे करते हैं, ये सबसे पहले तो जाते हैं गांव में, ये रिकग्नाइज करते हैं, ये सबसे पहले वुमेन को ट्रेनिंग देते हैं कि, और जब आप जाओ भी ना, व्हेन यू गो टू दिस वुमेन, यू डोंट गो विद अ सेवियर कॉम्प्लेक्स कि मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि वाटर स्कार्सिटी होती क्या है, मैं बताऊंगा कि वाटर बचाते कैसे। दीज वुमेन आर लिविंग विद वाटर स्कार्सिटी फॉर देयर होल लाइफ, इट इज their lived reality, it is central to them. You are not there to teach them anything, they know much more than you do. So it's important to not go with a very savior complex. It's important to go there with a spirit of collaboration and also of learning. तो फिर सबसे पहले तो ये उनके साथ सेशंस करते हैं, उनके प्रॉब्लम समझते हैं कि हाँ कहाँ कमी हो रही है। दे वर्क विद अ लॉट ऑफ EWRs, जो मैंने अपने साइड पे भी लिखा है, EWRs एंड SHGs, वुमेन इलेक्टेड वुमेन रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स, और SHGs के साथ ये काम करते हैं। फिर ये क्या करते हैं, उन्हीं औरतों में से दे गिव देम एम्प्लॉयमेंट फॉर 60 days, फॉर 90 days इन हेल्पिंग एंड डिगिंग दिस ह्यूज पॉन्ड, राइट? सो इससे क्या होता है, एक कलेक्टिव एक्शन होता है और लोकल नॉलेज का हम यूज कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, राइट? सो जोहार रीजनरेशन रिवाइज ट्रेडिशनल इकोलॉजिकल प्रैक्टिस as well as it places women at the center of a very community led process. हम आपके इंटरवेंशन के साथ नहीं जा रहे, यहाँ पे मैं बैठ के नहीं सोच रही हूँ कि हाँ रूरल राजस्थान में अगर हम ये इंटरवेंशन करें उनके उनके लिए अच्छा होगा। वी गो टू देम, we talk about their own self ecological practice, we give them the space, them the agency to take this forward and make it a very community led process. इससे क्या होता है फर्स्टली, और ये बड़ा फिजिकल पार्टिसिपेशन है, बट इट ऑल्सो बिकम्स ए एंट्री पॉइंट फॉर अ लॉट ऑफ women. It gives them leadership in their own village planning, it gives them resource management, and it gives them some sort of say in this war, in this process, right? और इसके बहुत ही multifold आप बेनिफिट्स देखोगे. सो माय मेंटर इन एट CSR, ही वाज टेलिंग मी, जब हम जाके जोहार रीजनरेट करते हैं, आपको एक तो बहुत ही कल्चरली इंपॉर्टेंट भी इनके लिए जोहार, तो आप देखोगे इनके बहुत सारे बर्थ सेरेमनीज, डेथ सेरेमनीज उस जोहार से रिलेटेड है. तो आप एक कल्चरल प्रेजर्वेशन भी कर रहे हो उनके रिचुअल्स का, उनके ट्रेडिशंस का. ही वुड ऑल्सो टेल मी कि जैसे ही जोहार बन जाता है एक गांव में, आप देखोगे कि all around you will see रात को there are birds coming, the cattle are coming and having water, right? तो एक पूरा community led holistic process बन जाता है उस community के लिए. And while all of this, you're also centering women and women's leadership, right? Why does all this matter? Because firstly, regeneration of water bodies, उनका समय कम हो रहा है. Now they are not going 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers simply to fetch water, right? You will realize in all of this, then climate justice also becomes an inseparable part of larger social justice conversations. And the most important thing that you will realize to this experience कि water is not neutral. आप गांव में जाओगे, water is a very gendered thing. आप देखोगे बस औरतें जाएंगी पानी लेने, men will not go and would take water. Even if the woman cannot go, men will go on a bike, get water and come back. It's a very gendered phenomena, right? So something as neutral as water also has very gendered implications in a rural setting. How is it impacting women's daily lives? How can we then use this, using their knowledge, using our own community led processes, to tackle this, to tackle the issue of droughts, to tackle the issue of water scarcity, while also having such multifold benefits along with it. This is one example of what gender climate work can look like, right? This is one of my, this is a picture that I've added a bunch of women. What this Johar pond was regenerated, the women protect and manage water resources here, right? So it also gives them dignity. This is something that we have done, right? This is another thing that I want to talk about. It's a more academic paper, but I want you to understand how heat impacts women differently, right? So this is a paper undertaken by IIT Delhi Trip Center. The name of the paper is Gender Resilience in Transport, Enhancing Adaptation in Extreme Heat in Delhi. अब हमने कैसे समझा कि वाटर न्यूट्रल नहीं है, वाटर की भी बहुत जेंडर्ड इम्प्लीकेशंस है. अब हम समझेंगे हीट, जो heat is also gendered in some way. How women are experiencing heat, how men are experiencing heat is perhaps also different. So if you go through the study that IIT Delhi undertook, some the major finding was that women are disproportionately affected by heat than men. What were some of the findings of this? पहला finding था walking is the primary mode of travel. A lot of times you will notice men will have bikes, men will not have to travel in extreme heat, but it is usually women who will take up shorter trips because they don't have vehicular access, right? So while men rely 65%, while men rely on vehicles, 65% of women trips are on foot, often during peak hours, right? Because women are out when there is extreme heat. It is usually to pick up their kid, it is usually to run small errands. They don't have vehicles, so they become more exposed to extreme heat in the process than men within the same household would be, right? जैसे आई विल टॉक, जैसे मेरे घर में जो कुक आती है माया दी, वो जितनी धूप हो, जितनी बारिश हो, 50 डिग्री हो रही हो दिल्ली में, शी विल कम, शी विल अंडरटेक दैट जर्नी ऑन फुट, बिकॉज अगेन डजंट हैव व्हीकल, हर सन हैज अ बाइक, बट शी विल अंडरटेक दैट जर्नी ऑन फुट ड्यूरिंग एक्सट्रीम हीट. 11-12 बजे शी विल कम, कुक एंड गो बैक. So her exposure to heat within the same household, it's much more than that of a son, right? This, you will realize how heat is also very related to caregiving burdens. So for example, जैसे मैं पहले point में बोली थी, women juggle school drop-offs, errands, household responsibilities, and it limits their ability to change travel modes or timings. उनके timing set है, वो सुबह में ही निकल सकती है, वो जो बाहर धूप है वो तभी निकल रही है, वो नहीं बोल सकती कि जब शाम हो जाएगी तो शायद मैं तब जाऊँ, जब धूप कम हो जाएगी मैं तब जाऊँ, राइट। और तीसरी सबसे बड़ी बात है कि हमारे देश में बहुत ही पुअर स्ट्रीट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है। तो जब सो मोस्ट स्ट्रीट्स दैट आर यूज्ड बाय वुमेन एंड चिल्ड्रन, दे विल लैक प्रॉपर शेडिंग, they will lack cooling amenities, which will lead to much more exposure for women of heat. Right. So this was a study that was taken in Delhi about how women are more exposed to heats. Right. तो हम समझ रहे हैं कि क्लाइमेट जो रिस्क है वो भी बहुत ही इंटैंगल्ड है हमारे सोशल रोल्स के अंदर, हमारे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के अंदर। और वो एक बहुत ही अनस्टडीड पार्ट ऑफ क्लाइमेट है जिसके बारे में हम उतनी बातें नहीं करते, बट बहुत ही इम्पैक्टफुल लिव्ड रियलिटी ऑफ सो मेनी पीपल है ये। ठीक है। और ये मेरा वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट लाइंस फ्रॉम द स्टडी आई हैव टेकन इज, रेजिलियंस कैन नॉट बी बिल्ट थ्रू टेक्नोलॉजी अलोन। आपको लगेगा आप सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी से ये सॉल्व करोगे, इट्स नॉट। इट रिक्वायर्स अटेंशन टू जेंडर पैटर्न्स ऑफ मोबिलिटी, ऑफ लेबर, ऑफ वल्नरेबिलिटी. It is important to understand them and then to think about climate, right? And then when we talk about climate action, it must include women's lived experiences, not only as beneficiaries but also as active agents. So मैंने बोला, let's not treat them as victims but also as leaders, innovators, people with wisdom, people with solutions. So पहले हमने देखा वाटर न्यूट्रल नहीं, यहाँ हम देख रहे हैं हीट भी शायद न्यूट्रल नहीं है, इसकी भी शायद जेंडर इम्प्लीकेशंस है, राइट। अब मैं थोड़ा सा अपने पॉडकास्ट के बारे में बात करूंगी। मेरा एक छोटा सा पॉडकास्ट है जहाँ मैं इन सब चीजों के बारे में बात करती हूँ बिकॉज आई केयर अबाउट इट। So I'm Chetna, that's me. That's my friend Afra. We also met on the similar fellowship that me and Ishan met in, and we decided to start a podcast because we were बहुत passionate about this और हमें लग रहा था लोग इसके बारे में enough बातें नहीं कर रहे। ठीक है। So our podcast is called Gendering Climate. It's gender, हमारा tagline है climate change is not gender neutral. ये हमारे कुछ guests हैं। We have had some wonderful guests, some wonderful conversations. मैं quickly बस दो तीन चीजें बोलना चाहूंगी जो मैं हर बात I go on a podcast and every time my mind is blown because I learn something new about gender and climate, right? But I'll talk about these are three people. उनके मैं दो तीन what I took away from them, perhaps some insights that perhaps you can integrate in your work as well. So firstly, we had Neha Sehgal. She's the director of gender and climate at ASAR. तो आई थिंक वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट टेक अवेज फ्रॉम माई कॉन्वर्जेशन विद हर वो यही था कि क्लाइमेट में बहुत ही एक टेक्नोक्रेटिक टर्न आ गया है कि हमको लगता है कि कोई एआई स्टार्टअप बना देगा स्टैनफोर्ड का ड्रॉप अप, कि वी विल जियो इंजीनियर वो स्प्रिंकल करेगा और हमारा क्लाइमेट बदल जाएगा। यू नो बहुत ही हम बात नहीं कर रहे हैं कि आप कम्युनिटीज में वापस जाओ, आप आप लोकल लेवल पे लोगों को एम्पावर करो कि वो कैसे क्लाइमेट को बदले। बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें हो रही है, मतलब मैक्रो लेवल पे बातें चली गई, बट वी नीड टू कम बैक टू लोकल लेवल, वी नीड टू कम बैक टू कम्युनिटीज, वी नीड टू कम बैक टू इंडिविजुअल्स, वी नीड टू कम बैक टू वुमेन, राइट। जो हमारी दूसरी कहती है उनका नाम था सेजुल दान। शी वाज द फाउंडिंग मेंबर ऑफ अनादी व्हिच इज अ फेमिनिस्ट कलेक्टिव। मेरे को लगता है शी वर्क्स अ लॉट ऑन लैंड राइट्स। तो मेरे को लगता है मेरी सबसे बड़ी जो मैंने इनसे चीज सीखी कि जब मैं फार्मर बोलती हूँ तो आपके दिमाग में पहला जो इमेज आएगा वो आएगा एक आदमी का। Though so many women work in farms, you will never think of a woman when you say the word farmer, right? And what does it do when when women, so she was drawing connections between gender, agriculture and food security. What happens when we start giving women land rights, when we start recognizing them as farmers? Does it make them more resilient to climate change? Does it make them more resilient in food security? Right, thinking about small things like that, right? And lastly, it's Hita Lakhani. She was the both me and Ishan. It was her fellowship that we met on. Again, a very inspiring woman. Works so much around climate, around youth-led voices, around climate education. I think for me, the biggest takeaway was how if you go decide to go ahead with this career of climate, uh, you can have so much impact, right? You can have so much impact, you can do so much, and there's so much work to be done, and you can do truly invaluable work that impacts people's lives. राइट। तो ये मेरा कंक्लूजन है। मैं जानती हूँ कंक्लूजन यूजुअली सबसे बोरिंग स्लाइड होता है, पर मैंने जो तीन चार बातें बोली है मैं बस उसे क्विकली से I will repeat and then we can open it up, right? So firstly, climate change is not only about carbon, it is also about power, it is about labor, it is about justice, right? Climate change क्या करता है? It reinforces existing inequalities. Women, girls, marginalized communities disproportionate burden bear करते हैं climate change जैसी चीजों का. ये neutral phenomena नहीं है. ठीक है. केयर वर्क जैसी चीजें, मोबिलिटी, हेल्थ, लाइवलीहुड, नॉलेज, all are gendered. They are gender phenomena and they should be studied with a gendered lens. I'm not saying there are not other lenses. There's a class lens to it. But gender is also an important lens that we need to bring to this discourse, right? We should recognize women as agents, not only as victims. I keep saying this again and again. And lastly, we should make space for local knowledge. We should make space for feminist leadership, for feminist knowledge within our fight in climate change, in our policy, and in our practice. Right. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. I will quickly stop sharing. Uh, Thank you so much for listening. मैं जानती हूँ attention economy में रहते हैं, and the most sort of priceless thing is attention. So even if a few people heard, it meant the world to me. Thank you so much.
Guys, any question? Anyone, any question?
I would love to know about you guys also. Why don't you introduce yourselves? One line. I'd love to hear.
Okay, so I will start. I'm Shrishti. I'm currently in Bangalore, working in a company named Digit, and I joined Kashvi with Ishan, working for the internship program actually.
Lovely.
So I guess Samriddhi, carry
Tag
on.
someone. Why don't we go tagging? So you tag someone, and then perhaps you can all tag each other and introduce yourselves.
Sure, sure. Samriddhi, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just graduated from 12th. Um, I will be studying computer science engineering, and I joined Kashvi last year, and currently I work in the HR department. Should I ask my question right now, or should I wait for that till everybody introduces
Let's
themselves?
tag, and then we'll get back to your question.
Okay.
Tag someone.
Ishan.
Hi everyone, Ishan this side from Varanasi. So from point of view of Kashvi, I'm the founder here or director भी. Well, that's it. बाकी सब
नहीं,
चीजें तो
मैं
हम
बहुत कुछ जानती हूँ ईशान के बारे में. मतलब I know him too well. So quickly you can.
I would tag Megha. Megha, you are on mute actually.
So sorry. Hi, this is Megha. I am also from Varanasi. I got connected to Ishan through Kashvi Foundation just as a donation part. So I have graduated from SRCC Delhi and now I'm married in Varanasi. So few years back, like 2 3 years back, I have this thing coming to me about sustainability and climate change as I have become a mother. So I just wanted to learn more about climate change. I'm doing my bits and pieces at household level, but I have not done anything big or any fellowship program or anything of that sort. But I've love to be a part of some community which helps in these kind of things.
I think Ishan is your best guy. He knows more about climate than anybody I know.
Yeah,
You are at the right place.
I'm glad that I texted him today. Okay, Vedansh.
Hi everyone, myself Vedansh. I am currently in 12th standard and I joined Kashvi last year as an editor and now I am working here as a social media manager.
Lovely. Tag someone with Ansh.
Vaibhav.
Hello. Uh, Good evening, everyone. My name is Rabir Sharma. I am a second year BTech student at UPS, Dehradun. Um, and
Shagो, tag करो basically.
Srishti is done.
हाँ,
Okay. So Pranjal.
Hello, my name is Pranjal and I'm currently studying at BSU, Become Honors first year student. And I joined Kashvi this year in January as a volunteer and now I'm an intern.
Okay.
I will tell Arush.
Hello, everybody. My name is Arush Dubey. I'm currently a second year student at the University of Essex and I work in venture capital as well as sustainability. I joined Kashvi as a communications associate and I reached out to Ishan and he was nice enough to let me on and that's my story of at Kashvi. I'll tag Ronak.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Ronak. I'm also from Varanasi. I'm currently pursuing my MBA from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. So I know Ishan Bhaiya from one of my very close person. So Ishan Bhaiya is an elder brother to me, and uh, I'm currently taking some electives in ESG and sustainability as well. So I just saw the story of Ishan Bhaiya, and I thought I should join this conversation, and it was very insightful. Thank you, Chetna. Uh, we have seen another angle. From a woman perspective as well. So it was very insightful.
Thank you. So glad you joined. सब हो गया tag?
Hey, Ekal, why won't you go next?
Yes. Hi, I'm Ekal. I'm a second year student currently pursuing my BTech degree in computer science and engineering from UPS Dehradun, and I'm currently interning in Kashvi as its content writer.
Mm, I guess Ishita.
Yeah, Ishita is there.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. So I'm not part of Kashvi, but I know Ishan through another fellowship, and I saw this webinar happening today, so I reached out to him. I'm from Delhi, and I work in the sustainability sector. So yeah, that's pretty much about me.
I guess we will move ahead with questions
Yeah.
now. Anyone?
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask. Yeah, so forgot to say, but yeah, thank you so much. I always wanted to learn about this. So I think this will be the best perspective I could gain on it, or one of them. Um, so I stalked your account a bit and saw that you have like a second account, which is that Cinema Girl, and I wanted to ask you how you think climate change intersects with storytelling. Also, would you be interested in filmmaking? Like, would you make a documentary, a short film, or a full feature? And if you do, I would love to be a part of it.
I would love to have you. So I'm sorry, what was your first question? First question was around
How climate change can intersect with, let's say, storytelling or cinema?
great question. Love that question. I love that you stalked me. I feel very privileged and flattered. Uh, so I think, like I said, any discourse that happens, no, it starts with storytelling only. So सबसे पहले there's storytelling, then media starts to pick it up. Then I think there is some consciousness within society, civil organizations come in, and then it becomes a potent enough policy concern, right? So anything for it to start, it starts with a story, right? So for us at Gender and Climate, we initially wanted to do storytelling. We wanted to go to these women and document how is for example, these very messy parts of climate change. I'll give you examples of something that I was really interested in. कि हम बोलते हैं कि clean tech transition हो जाना चाहिए और ये this is good for them. But the state that I come from Bihar, and I live in Jharkhand. So Jharkhand mein a lot of women are losing out on their employment because they're traditionally coal pickers. right? और जो ये clean tech revolution आ रहा है, they're completely becoming disenfranchised from their livelihood. एंड वी वांटेड टू कवर बिकॉज ये थोड़ा सा ग्रे एरिया है, क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि नहीं, क्लीन टेक इज वेरी गुड but this is bad and this is always a good move. But what happens when these women become disenfranchised? So we wanted to do that and do this through storytelling, which we felt was such a like primary source में जाके आप stories बता रहे हो. What a privilege and you know what great work. But we realized कि हम मतलब हम नहीं कर पाए क्योंकि हम वहां तक पहुंच नहीं पाए. पर ये जरूरी नहीं है कि आप स्टोरी टेलिंग के लिए हमेशा वहां जाओ. देयर आर सच क्रिएटिव वेज टू डू स्टोरी टेलिंग, राइट? यू कैन स्टार्ट विद अ रील, you can start with your daily experiences of how you are experiencing climate differently. And I think it's perhaps one of the most sort of if you want to start your activism, I think it's a great place to start your activism is just documentation and storytelling, right? And especially when it comes from authentic sources, when it comes from ground up local sources, I think it's invaluable because a lot of people want to stay within rooms and then write about climate, but then to be able to go on ground and cover climate stories is something truly I think invaluable, and I think we should promote it more. On that note, since all of you are interested in this space, there's this fellowship that IDR does, which is on storytelling and climate. I think so. I will have to check. And what they do is that they try to have fellows who are covering climate storytelling within their own communities. Right. So perhaps if this is something that you want to explore, find these opportunities. The world is full of opportunities, right? You just have to find it. Go and find. If you're interested in this space of storytelling and climate, it's a beautiful space to be in. I think IDR is something that you can go and explore. They also have a fellowship around it. And I think storytelling is very important. We need more ground up stories within climate. When it comes to me personally, it is my dream. Like, I think my ideal situation would be that I end up a filmmaker, but I know ki because I don't have the skill nor the, I don't know, not the sort of audacity to go to Mumbai and say I want to become a filmmaker. Hopefully someday, but I do make a film. I'm really passionate about cinema. I'm really passionate about movies. And if one day it does happen, I hope that it's around women and climate. And I now that you asked this question, I'm also sort of intrigued to see if there's been other movies around climate and women. We should probably check it out. No, both of us. Even I don't know about it. But yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely question. Thank you so much.
I had a question as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Arush, go ahead.
Okay. So I had one question as well. When you say that women are more impacted by yeah, by climate change than men are, so often we see that women in rural areas often are not in employment but rather in homemaking, right? So do you think that the rural women are and especially women who are not in employment are at a greater threat than women who'd be out in the fields and the farms?
No, I definitely. So, see, there are some areas where women are more impacted. There are some areas where men are more impacted. Because we still need to understand that usually women stay at home. It's men who go out and work. Men who are more likely to be, for example, daily wage workers, right? Workers. For example, in Delhi, I remember it gets so hot, and my heart goes out when I see, daily wage workers around construction sites because it's so hot. 50 degree हो जाती है, pollution है. वो कपड़े भिगा भिगा के they will round it around the sun just to keep their head cool, right? Or for example, look at our gig economy. Look at those guys, barish ho, dhoop ho, they will get you that bread anda at your place. So in that way, they are also more impacted, right? It's not like women are more impacted. There are some areas where we see women are more impacted. There are some areas where men might be more exposed to this. Look at our informal economy ko aap dekh lo. There's of course men who are being more impacted by this. uh, when it comes to the comparison between women staying at home and women who are going out working, I feel like it would be women who are going out working who would be more impacted. Though with that IIT Delhi trip study, we did feel like एक्सट्रीम हीट का एक्सपोजर वुमेन को ज्यादा हो रहा है क्योंकि बस स्टॉप में वो वेट कर रही हैं या फिर काम करने जा रही हैं तो वो पैदल ज्यादा चल रही हैं, पर ये भी वर्किंग वुमेन है, क्योंकि वो जो मेरी माया दीदी है, शी इज अ कुक एट माय प्लेस, right? So I do feel that women who would be working would have more exposure to, for example, say heat, um than a woman staying at home. But even women staying at home, if you go to rural India, जब मैंने वो पानी वाली बात बोली कि वाटर स्कार्सिटी बहुत बहुत बड़ा एक एक्टिविटी, एक सेंट्रल एक्टिविटी है women के लाइफ का, पानी कलेक्शन। आप किसी भी गांव में चले जाओ, रूरल साइड, you will see a very common sight across rural India will be women carrying water. And so these women are also in the household. So I don't know if I can exactly draw this very direct relation between who is getting impacted more. I wouldn't know. My sense is saying, is it women who are going out and working? Is it women? But I know women who are also at home are at the risk of being out at the sun, going and collecting water. So I wouldn't have a clear answer myself. Tell me, what is your hunch about this, Arush? What do you feel?
Thank you, but I think irrespectively, when I study climate, and I've asked a lot of scientists. The thing that they said was that urban poor are the worst impacted by climate change rather than rural women or rural poor. So it's like that the urban poor with the urban island heat island effect, as well as the their homes are very informal. So it's all a home, right? So they say that the urban poor as well as rural women are equally kind of affected, but I do think that women who are at home are a bit more affected, because at least just say in rural areas, if you go out in the fields, there may be some rest, there's wind blowing, you may have some fresh air. But you have people who are women who are at like their kitchens, which are burning and 60 degrees inside. So I think that they might be the more affected of the two.
No, I very much agree with you. Like, and for example, then we can say the worst impacted may be the urban urban poor woman, right? Because even in the IIT Delhi study, one of the things that they really flagged was poor infrastructure in urban cities for working class women. That was their study area focus. So I think, yeah, I do agree with you there that maybe urban poor might be the most impacted by this rather than rural women. But I don't know how much of this we can quantify and tell ये ज़्यादा impact हो रहा है, ये कम impact हो रहा है. But yeah, I do agree with you there about urban poor being more impacted.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Ishita, please go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I have a perspective to add on this. Like,
Please, please, please.
in terms of whether women are being more affected at urban areas or rural areas, so I was reading a couple of studies, and like women in general are being affected in terms of their menstruation cycles are getting changed because of extreme heat, and also the fact that it's increasing the complications in their pregnancy, whether it's stillbirth or other things. So it's impacting women regardless of the fact whether they are in urban areas or rural areas. That's
I
all.
agree. A really important perspective. So, I remember when I was doing this fellowship with Ishan, and for our final fellowship, we were presenting our work to Smriti Irani had come. And when Smriti Irani talked about a project, the one thing that she flagged about a project is that you should really explore the relationship between heat and health, right? Because we do see there have been impacts of, say, menstruation cycle being impacted, or for example, pregnancy being impacted, but it's a very understudied area, and I think there needs to be more scholarship around it for it to gain more ground. But of course, there have been some initial studies, and they do suggest that there have been relationships between heat stress and women, for sure. Great insight, thank you so much. Yes, Megha, go ahead. Megha, did you have a question?
I guess her video is paused, or we can wait for
Uh,
some time.
I think
We can go ahead with Arush.
Arush, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to like Ishita's point. I completely agree, and I think the one thing that I wanted to add was that we are not talking about that women are not impacted. Of course, they're more impacted. It's just that rural women who are not employed, unfortunately, and are stuck in their homes are more affected than women who might be employed. because there's a social factor as well, because women in general who are earning have a better say in their households versus, as a perspective, due to patriarchy, a lot of women who are not working do not have a say in their household.
I think I wouldn't agree with you there, Arush. I think women who are employed in, firstly, if women are in urban areas, working class women are usually employed, right? And I think they might be more impacted than, but okay, let's take an example of a urban, let's do this. A urban rural woman who is employed versus unemployed. If I were to take my guess on it, I think an employed woman would have more heat stress affecting her than an unemployed woman, because I think she is going out and working, she is walking, she's taking those errand runs. Uh, but yeah, again, like it's difficult to then like say we are working with only these conceptual categories. It's also about what locality they are living in, what is their other access to things. I think we need more categories to be able to then substantiate and think about then finding patterns, right? Because right now it's a guess game. Employed are there, unemployed. We do. I think we need more. We need to add more sort of characters to this story to get a more holistic view of it, कि वो कहाँ रह रही है, उनका इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस क्या है, उनका ऑक्यूपेशन क्या है, शायद how are their men employed, what about the, I think what about the children, do they have more children, so does it mean they're making more trips. uh, so I think
Uh,
those kind of factors then need to come in for us to be able to have conjectures about what's happening about
and
what.
I just
Yep.
wanted to raise a small counterpoint. In my perspective, so this is a purely anecdotal. This is not exactly representative of the loud majority, but I know a person who does not work, and there's also another lady that works. So from what I know, is that since the woman that has the income coming and the combined family earns somewhat well, so it's like around 20K per month,
Mhm.
they've been able to afford basic amenities which have helped them kind of, relax throughout the summer. They have a cooler. However, the woman that is not employed is often, there's already financial stress at her home, and there's also other factors that affect her livelihood. So I think maybe heat stress affects the working one more, but I feel like climate change impacts overall are much more strained towards the women who is not in employment.
No, I agree to that. So definitely occupation and your class is also a huge lens on how climate impacts you, right? Delhi mein, the rich and elite can have microclimatic conditions of climate and having heaters. So of course class then also becomes a factor. Does an employed woman through her economic independence able to get those resources to then to be able to combat climate better? Is she then getting a cycle in response that is helping reduce her heat stress? So how does that play? And I think yes, like interesting, very interesting questions. I think we need more variables along this and more studies. And I feel this in general, like I was talking about Ishita's question as well, along heat and health, uh, that it's very initial and there needs to be more scholarship around it. And that's why we need to talk more about gender and climate. So we need more funding, more people studying it, more studies, so that we can perhaps answer these questions better. Mika, go ahead.
Hi, Chetna. Thank you for your words. This was very insightful. So I just wanted to about the employment thing of women. So more women are going into the workforce. So it implies more workspace, like per capita wise. So more air conditioning and more facilities, which are adding to the climate change again. So are we taking these increase in the like the percentage which women working are contributing to the climate change? So are we taking that percentage and how are they impacting? So अगर climate change कम है तो कम women impact होगी, अगर वो ज्यादा है तो उसका proportionately भी effect ज्यादा होगा.
Hmm.
So how are we taking this? Like are we do we consider these factors?
Yeah. Um, I just feel like so see any because social phenomena is so complex, any
Mm.
consequence has unintended consequence, right? But I think the response to this, for example, we say if more women are going to the workforce, is it leading to more road congestion? Is it leading to road? I think then the focus should not be to subdue the intended consequence, but to reduce the unintended consequences. Does that make sense? So the
Mm.
argument here wouldn't be, oh, women are going, so how is that affecting climate change? The consequences, is it affecting? How do we reduce that while also making sure that they are able to participate in the workforce, because we know that this is an emancipatory experience for women when they're able to have some financial um,
Independence.
independence for themselves, right? So and apart from that, I feel like it's not a very strong argument to
Mm.
say that if more women are employed, is it leading to more climate change impact. uh, but if it is true, I think some men should then sit back at home and let more women be employed, if that is the case. uh, but I don't think that is the case. I think I don't think there's a very strong correlation over there. Yes, Ron,
Okay.
go ahead. Thank you so much, Megha, for your question.
Thank you.
Uh, my question is regarding the climate change. As the world is talking about carbon credits, so I have a very different like opinion on this. Uh, in the one hand, the world is talking about to like destroy one geography. Suppose I talking about America, and they wanted to destroy the flora and fauna and the ecosystem there, and they wanted to compensate this with the carbon credits from another continent, or like how this can be justifiable, and like at what extent this gonna impact one geography and other. So what's your opinion, Chetna, on this?
Great question. I'm so glad you asked this question. I'm actually working on a paper on this. So I'm writing a paper on CBAM. Europe has proposed to impose CBAM on countries, carbon prices, कि अगर आपके देश से सामान आ रहा है और उसमें इतना कार्बन लग रहा है, we will include that tax in the goods that come in into our country and then sell it, right? And how is then CBAM affecting larger geopolitical space? Now with the whole carbon credit thing, it gained a lot of momentum बीच में कि हाँ carbon credit, आप अपने carbon credit इसको बेच दो तो आप तो फिर आप काम कर सकते हो क्योंकि you have been able to sort of neutralize that somewhere, क्योंकि आपने किसी को बेच दिया और अपना कम कर दिया. बट अगर आप कार्बन क्रेडिट पढ़ोगे कि उसका डेवलपमेंट कैसे हुआ है, इट्स कम आउट टू बी अ ह्यूज बस्ट. बहुत घपला हुआ है कार्बन क्रेडिट में, और अब बहुत लोग इस पूरे चीज को ही कंटेस्ट करें कि कार्बन क्रेडिट इज परहैप्स नॉट द मोस्ट इंटेलिजेंट वे टू गो अबाउट इट, क्योंकि बड़ी कंपनियां बहुत बोलती हैं कि हाँ हमने इतना किया, पर हमने इनसे इतना कार्बन क्रेडिट ले लिया तो अब हमारा न्यूट्रलाइज हो गया. So I think carbon credit as a concept is really regoing some consideration, because initially when it was implemented, it came with a lot of loopholes and bars that was mostly being exploited by big multinational corporations. When it comes to CBAM and when it comes to discussions around imposing carbon taxing on various countries on goods, there's a lot of geopolitical implications. ठीक है, ये बहुत, जैसे आप इंडिया की बात करो तो अगर यूरोप सीबैम लगा दे इंडिया पे, सो इंडिया विल एक्सपीरियंस अ लॉट ऑफ, जैसे एक डेटा पॉइंट है कि हमारी एल्युमिनियम और स्टील इंडस्ट्री 30 मिलियन के लॉस में चली जाएगी, क्योंकि इट्स सो कार्बन इंटेंसिव एंड वी एक्सपोर्ट सो मच स्टील एंड एल्युमिनियम टू यूरोप that country will that we will go in it we will start that industry will start experiencing losses, right? और लोगों को ये भी बड़ा empirical और colonial logic लगता है कि यूरोप कौन होता है कि हमारे गुड्स पे टैक्स लगा दे, राइट? तो इसके बहुत geopolitical implications भी अभी. I know Jaishankar went on a Europe trip and was saying that CBAM is completely it's very bad for India, and we will completely contest this, and we are not agreeing to this because CBAM is destined to be implemented from 2026. So there are negotiations around it कि बहुत ही imperial logic आ जाता है, फिर वो लॉजिक आ जाता है जो आप बहुत ज्यादा क्लाइमेट डिस्कोर्स में देखोगे कि डिफरेंशिएटेड रिस्पांसिबिलिटी का कॉन्सेप्ट, कि हमने तो अभी तक डेवलप हुए नहीं, ये डेवलप हो गए, अभी आके हम पे कार्बन टैक्स लगा रहे हैं जब हमारी डेवलपमेंट जर्नी स्टार्ट हो रही है और हमारा शायद कार्बन क्रेडिट बढ़ रहा है. तो ये सिंपल क्वेश्चंस नहीं है, पर कार्बन क्रेडिट एज अ कॉन्सेप्ट हैज बीन अ लिटिल बस्टेड क्योंकि बहुत घपले हुए उसमें. But yeah, I'm also writing a paper on this. So again, with two friends that I met at CLP, we are writing a paper on CBAM and climate trade wars and how that is affecting larger geopolitics. But thank you so much for asking that question. Do you have any opinions on this? I would love to know yours also. What do you think about carbon credits? Tell.
No, I like particularly talking about I'm more concerned about the flora and fauna of a particular geography. If
Hmm.
they extend so how they can be compensated from the carbon credits of other geography. So this is not justifiable at any extent, and maybe through this a new we can say that industrialization happen, like the developed country maybe overexploit this with the underdeveloped country. They used to buy they will buy
Yes,
carbon
बहुत ही
credits.
popular argument है कि developed countries exploit कर रही हैं carbon credit जैसी चीजें
Yeah.
खुद के benefit के लिए. And I think this is मतलब I agree with it. I think it's well founded and has basis. Thank you so much for your question.
Anyone has any more questions? Okay, so I have one. So I guess everybody has asked something, but I have a more of a hypothetical question. So for you being a woman and you have watched your mother, grandmothers, and everyone, so what like if you have a superpower to solve that one climate issue overnight, so what would you fix for that could impact the woman life on a large scale?
Great question. You know, in our podcast also we ask hypothetical questions. I love it. Uh, hmm. God, this has put me on a thinking spiral. Like I really have to think about this. I don't have the best answer, but I think so much I've been recently thinking about heat and women because I think मैं ना personally भी आता है क्योंकि मैं दिल्ली में रहती हूँ और heat really affects me as well. Where body temperatures. Great question. See, I think people might have more innovative answers than me, but I think the first thing that's coming to my head and the way it affects my mother because I know she stands in the kitchen the longest time cooking food. I think it would be just solving heat, and I think it will not only impact women. I think it will just have a larger sort of. But I don't know how to solve this. बस मैं बोलती हूँ अब heat 45 से 40 से ऊपर नहीं जाना चाहिए. That would be my superpower. 40 से ऊपर नहीं पूरे देश में. Um,
I wish, I wish, I wish that too, especially in Delhi.
especially in Delhi. Are you from Delhi?
No, I have been there like for 3 years. I was there in Delhi.
It's bad here. It's bad here. But yeah. If anybody else has some innovative answer, please feel free to engage. But
I would
if
love to hear Ishan's perspective as well. Like
Ishan will do
Ishan,
it. I also have for Ishan. Yeah. Ishan have. One
what's that
superpower is
one thing you want to change with your superpower?
Honestly, मैंने क्वेश्चन नहीं सुना एक्चुअली मेरे साइड पे नेटवर्क इशू था. कैन यू रिपीट? क्या था?
Yeah, so my question was like it was for her, but basically if you had a superpower to solve that one climate issue overnight, so what would you fix first that could impact a large number of audience?
Simply mindset.
Works. That is the initial step, I guess.
इनिशियल नहीं, वही सब कुछ रीजन है यार. शायद कुछ भी रिलेट कर लो, कोई भी प्रॉब्लम एग्जिस्ट कर रही है वो ऑफ कोर्स उसके पीछे कहीं ना कहीं माइंडसेट ही है. ईच एंड एवरीथिंग. दैट्स द वेरी सिंपल आंसर. आई थिंक इट कुड बी.
I agree. Okay, so anyone, anything, anyone wants to ask something, anything. Okay, I guess it is done. Ishan, can we have a picture
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Guys, can you please sit on the camera?
with Aunt Shekhar?
Okay. Ishita?
Ishita, tell when you're clicking, then we'll smile.
Okay, on the count of three. One, two, and three. बस एक बार और.
रुको चश्मा
और
उतार दो मगर शान रुको
हाँ,
चश्मा उतार
पोज चेंज कर
इम्पोर्टेंट
सकते हैं.
हाँ
वो कोरियन लव वाला भी कुछ ऐसा कर सकते हैं हम लोग. 1, 2, and Chetna, your signature wala. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3. Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
The most
Thank you.
wonderful questions, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chetna.
Okay.
And also, I loved doing this. Thank you so much for that, for the opportunity.
Thanks for
So
being
thank you
here.
so
Genuinely.
much. Thank you so much, Chetna, for sharing such an insightful session. Like we couldn't have correlated ever, like how women can be impacted with climate change, but it was very insightful, and we truly appreciate the clarity and passion and thought you have shared. So yeah, thank you once again. Like thank you.
Thank you
अच्छा
so much.
चेतना, genuinely, this is the first session जो इतना लेट तक चला और कोई भी बोर नहीं हुआ. Seriously.
I had a great audience. I loved it. I loved all the questions also क्योंकि मैं खुद भी सोच रही थी. तो ऐसे तो मैंने सोचा नहीं है. So great questions also. Lovely audience. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Bye
you,
bye
Megham.
guys.
Thank you, Chetna. Thank you, Ronak. Okay. Bye.